In the year 2019, the Walt Disney Company was an unstoppable financial juggernaut. They released 7 different movies that each made over $1 billion at the global box office. Wall Street investors thought Disney had unlocked the ultimate cheat code to print infinite money. But if you look at the Walt Disney Company today, as we head into 2025, that golden empire is burning to the ground. In the last 24 months, Disney has suffered a historic, catastrophic string of box office disasters. They are bleeding hundreds of millions of dollars on projects that were supposed to be guaranteed hits. But before we look at the absolute worst offenders, you have to understand the dark math of Hollywood accounting. Because when a studio says a movie cost $200 million, they are lying. Here is the 2.5 rule. When you see a movie's official production budget, that number does not include marketing. Disney usually spends an extra $100 million just on TV commercials, billboards, and press tours. Furthermore, Disney doesn't get to keep all the ticket money. The movie theaters take about 50% of the cash right off the top. So for a Disney movie to actually break even and turn a single dollar of profit, it has to make roughly 2.5 times its production budget. If a movie costs $200 million to make, it has to earn $500 million just to survive.
I got this!
Now that you know the real math, let's look at the scoreboard. Here are the most expensive, devastating financial flops in modern Disney history, and the corporate arrogance that caused them. Flop number 1, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. On paper, this seemed like a guaranteed goldmine, Harrison Ford returning to his most iconic role. But behind the closed doors of Lucasfilm, the budget was spiraling completely out of control. The official production budget hit an eye-watering $300 million. Why was it so incredibly expensive? First, it was shot during a global pandemic, which added millions in delays. Second, Disney decided to spend a massive fortune on CGI technology to de-age Harrison Ford so he looked 30 years younger for the opening scene. Remember the 2.5 rule. With a $300 million budget, plus over $100 million in global marketing, this movie needed to make roughly $800 million just to break. But then, Disney executives made a fatal marketing mistake. They decided to premiere the movie at the Cannes Film Festival a whole month before it hit theaters. They assumed the critics would love it. They didn't. The critics destroyed the movie online, and the bad word of mouth spread like wildfire for 4 straight weeks. When the movie finally hit theaters, it made just $384 million globally. Because the theaters keep half of that, Disney only took home around $192 million. When you subtract the massive production and marketing costs, financial analysts estimate that Disney lost over $130 million. They spent a fortune trying to weaponize nostalgia, and the audience completely rejected it. But at least Indiana Jones made some money.
Indy! Give 'em hell, Indiana Jones!
Flop number 2, Haunted Mansion. Disney loves turning their theme park rides into movies. Pirates of the Caribbean made them billions, so they assumed Haunted Mansion would do the same. They gave the director a massive $150 million budget to bring the spooky ride to life. Now, if you have a movie about a haunted mansion full of ghosts and pumpkins, logic dictates that you should release it in October, right around Halloween. Families would flock to the theaters. But Disney's distribution executives got arrogant. They decided to release this spooky Halloween movie in the middle of July, and not just any weekend in July. They released it exactly 1 week after the historic cinematic event known as Barbenheimer. Barbie and Oppenheimer were completely dominating the cultural conversation and taking every single dollar out of the public's wallet. Disney sent Haunted Mansion out to die. It opened to a pitiful $24 million. By the end of its global run, it had only made $117 million. Financial experts estimate this scheduling blunder cost the Walt Disney Company nearly $100 million in pure losses.
God, give us a break. There's so many bad people in the world. Haunt them.
Amen.
But even a $100 million loss is pocket change compared to the total collapse of Disney's biggest golden goose. The next movie on our list didn't just lose money, it mathematically destroyed the most successful cinematic universe in Hollywood history. Flop number 3, The Marvels. In 2019, the first Captain Marvel movie made over $1 billion. It was a massive success. So naturally, Disney greenlit a sequel. But between 2019 and 2023, Disney's CEO made a desperate pivot. They launched the Disney Plus streaming service, and they demanded that Marvel Studios pump out dozens of TV shows to keep people subscribed. Suddenly, to understand the plot of The Marvels, audiences were required to watch hours of homework on Disney Plus, including WandaVision and Miss Marvel television shows. The audience was completely exhausted, but Disney was blindly throwing money into the furnace. For years, Disney tried to hide the true budget of this movie, but because it was filmed in the United Kingdom, they were legally required to file corporate tax documents with the UK government. Those public documents leaked, and they revealed that Disney spent a staggering $270 million making The Marvels. It needed almost $700 million to break even. When it hit theaters, it was a bloodbath. It made just $206 million globally. It was the lowest grossing movie in the entire 15-year history of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Disney executives were so embarrassed by the collapse that 4 weeks into its theatrical run, Disney released an official public statement announcing they were going to stop reporting the weekend box office numbers for the movie. They literally hid the scoreboard because the loss was too humiliating. The estimated total loss for the Walt Disney Company on this single movie, over $200 million. But all of these movies are in the past. What is truly terrifying Wall Street investors right now is the future, because Disney has 2 massive movies slated for 2025, and they are already hundreds of millions of dollars in the red before a single ticket has been sold. Welcome to the 2025 financial black holes. Let's start with Captain America: Brave New World.
Want me? Come and get me!
This movie finished filming years ago with an estimated budget of around $150 million. But when Disney screened the movie for test audiences, the scores were allegedly abysmal. The executives panicked. Instead of fixing the movie in the editing room, they ordered historic, unprecedented reshoots. They threw out massive chunks of the script, hired a new writer, added a completely new villain, and forced the cast and crew to film for an extra 22 days. Every single day of reshoots burns millions of dollars. Industry insiders now estimate the budget for this movie has ballooned to over $300 million. It will need to make almost $700 million at the box office just to break even in 2025. And then there is Snow White. Disney has made billions remaking their classic animated films into live-action movies. Snow White was supposed to be an easy slam dunk for 2024, but the movie became a massive PR nightmare. The lead actress made highly controversial comments about the original film, alienating the core fan base. Leaked photos of the 7 dwarves were mocked relentlessly on the internet for looking like cheap Halloween costumes.
Mirror on the wall. Who is the fairest of them all?
Famed is thy beauty, Majesty.
So, what did Disney do? They delayed the movie an entire year to 2025 and ordered massive, expensive CGI reshoots to completely digitally replace the actors playing the dwarfs. Between the year-long delay, the PR crisis, and the heavy CGI overhauls, financial analysts estimate the budget for Snow White is now climbing well past $250 million. If either of these 2025 movies fail to make $700 million at the box office, it could trigger a massive executive shakeup at the Walt Disney Company. So, how does a company lose nearly $1 billion at the box office in just a couple of years and avoid total bankruptcy? The answer is corporate synergy. Disney's box office failures are a disaster, but the Walt Disney Company is not just a movie studio. They own theme parks, cruise lines, ESPN. When a movie like The Marvels or Indiana Jones loses $150 million on paper, Disney's corporate accountants use that massive loss as a tax write-off to offset the billions of dollars in profit they are making selling $12 churros at Disneyland. But this strategy cannot last forever. Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, recently held an emergency town hall with his employees. He admitted that the studio had prioritized quantity over quality. He announced that they're drastically cutting back on how many movies and TV shows they make. The era of the guaranteed billion-dollar Disney blockbuster is officially over. The audience has woken up. They are no longer willing to pay $20 for a movie ticket just because it has a Marvel logo on the poster. Wall Street has noticed, the stock price has suffered, and the pressure on 2025 is higher than it has ever been in the 100-year history of the company. The magic hasn't completely disappeared, but right now, the accountants are running the castle. If you want to know how other major studios legally fake their math to avoid paying taxes and actors, click the video on your screen right now to see how Warner Brothers claimed Harry Potter was a financial failure. And don't forget to subscribe to follow the money.